All right, good morning, everyone. This is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority. Today is February 15th, 2019. President in Albany are Chairman Bradley, Commissioner Ford. President in New York City is Commissioner Fan. For Council's office is Associate Counsel Morsico, and myself, Secretary Donahue. We only have 2 items on today's special meeting. We both requests from Council's office for summary orders of suspension. The first item I have is 311B, Review Entertainment, Inc.
Good morning, members. Council's office is requesting that you issue an order of summary suspension as to Review, Inc. This is a premise that is licensed as an adult entertainment, maximum occupancy of 200. Dancing is permitted. The principals were required to manage. There's 2 owners named Dennis Conway and Asumo Enyene. They're permitted to have 3 security guards, 10 to 12 employees total. And the reason we're here is because on January 31st, 2019, at about 3:35 in the morning, plainclothes crime officers made a car stop in the vicinity of Review Entertainment, Inc., and they've been calling themselves Cityscapes for a significant amount of time in an authorized manner, so I'll just refer to them by what they call themselves, Cityscape. So they stopped this car in the vicinity of Cityscape. They found occupants in the car. One of them said, "My friend just got stabbed at Cityscapes." The officers returned to Cityscapes. They confronted management about whether or not a stabbing had taken place, and the management confirmed that, in fact, the stabbing had occurred inside, although they had never called 911. And then after that, they cooperated with the police. I would just note that in connection with this incident, this licensee has a lot of baggage. If you'll see from the memorandum, they have extensive adverse history against them for selling to minors, for permitting disorder, permitting controlled substances to be sold within the premise. They also have been nuisance abated in the past. They paid a fine and settled with the NYPD in 2016. They agreed to act to use scanners to ID people to prevent, obviously further sale to minors and things like that, to ensure that their guards were registered, and to pat down all patrons to make sure that there's no weapons. So they were put on notice with the settlement of what their obligations were. I mean, these are obvious things, but they were also put on another notice that these were their obligations in order to effectively supervise their premise. So we have this incident where they failed to report it to the police or hiding it from the police. Then there's another incident which occurred on December 12th where the employees called the police and said that a man was walking around with a loaded Glock on the thigh holster, and he was acting as security for one of the performers there. Apparently this man was a Georgia police officer, and he felt that he could walk around in this manner. He left the loaded gun in the front seat of a TLC cab, and he was arrested. There have been other incidents as well. Most notably on July 12th of 2018, a patron said he was menaced with a gun inside the licensed premise, so clearly they're not patting down patrons appropriately.
You said July 12th or 14th?
I thought it was July 12th, Chairman.
Your paperwork says the 14th.
Okay, I apologize. I'll go with my paperwork, July 14th. There was also...
July 14th?
Yes. There was also a loaded gun that was recovered in front of on October 6th of 2017. There was a gunpoint robbery on March 24th, 2017 in front of the licensed premise. And on November 3rd of 2017, there was a man arrested in possession of a loaded gun inside the licensed premise. So that's of concern. In addition, there was a stabbing incident, which from the paperwork doesn't say much, but I spoke to the Special Operations Lieutenant, and that caused the Counsel's office to be additionally concerned because there was a stabbing on May 20th of 2018 at 2 in the morning, which happened in the rear of the premise near an illegal food truck that's been operating there. And I would note this is in violation of a community board stipulation where they agreed to not be in the backyard area after 10 p.m. So they're operating this illegal food truck at 2 in the morning, and a patron was stabbed in that area. When the officers went and asked the security guards what's going on, we just got a 911 call. The security guards lied to the officers and said nothing's going on here, nothing happened. So the police officers were diligent and looked around and actually found the victim sitting in the side entrance, bleeding. He was uncooperative, but they found the victim. No thanks to the security guards. Also, with regard to the January 31st incident, I forgot to mention, which is also a very critical point, the video shows that the perpetrator in that stabbing was 20 years old, so he was underage. He got in through a side door, so he bypassed security procedures, and he's still wanted. And he is obviously had no business being inside the licensed premise, and so that's an additional concern.
So they obviously know who he is if they know he's 20 years old. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Through other investigative means, they learned who that individual was. I think eventually the licensee did give video surveillance to the police, and through video surveillance they were able to figure out who he is, and they figured out his age. But it wasn't through, I don't believe it was through a scanner, because there's been an issue with the scanner as well. As I indicated in the stipulation, they're required to have a scanner, and various times when the police have inspected the premise, I believe in June of 2018, the scanner was not working. So it's not clear that they're consistently using their scanner either. So basically the police advise us that this licensee is attracting a very dangerous crowd, carrying weapons. They're not fulfilling their obligations to adequately supervise the premise, and they're presenting a public threat to the safety. I believe with sustaining, and also, I apologize, there was the follow-up inspection which occurred on February 9th with the SLA and the police, where they found a myriad of fire and safety violations, including, fire extinguishers not inspected, public assembly permit expired, operating a kitchen illegally from the basement, smoke detector hanging from the ceiling to prevent it from sounding. And I think part of the reason they're doing that is because they're allowing marijuana smoking inside. There's evidence that police recovered marijuana that's been vouchered and will be tested, and perhaps that's a reason why they disengaged the smoke detectors. So, they're presenting a public threat in different ways, both by the violence that's occurring, the crowd they're attracting, and just their failure to maintain fire and safety rules. So that's why we're requesting a summary suspension.
The stabbing on 5/20/18, did we know about that back then, or was this brought to our attention?
It's not clear. I know that we have 2 pending cases against him now for other violations that did not include the 5/20/18. So I didn't check all the referrals, but it's very possible that it wasn't brought to our attention. I know a lot of these incidents that are occurring in the vicinity, the dangerous weapons and all those things. I was not aware. We were not aware of those things that were happening in the vicinity.
Do you know the approximate dates, meaning years, that those pending cases are from?
Well,
I mean, the reason I ask is there was a public nuisance action brought that they settled, and I read the settlement, and the settlement, which is the first time I've seen this, required them to have a monitor from
Yes.
September of 2016 for at least a year, and if the police department said they needed it for more time than that, it allowed another 6 months. So do you know when one, do you know who the monitor was? And 2, do you know if that ended after a year?
yeah, I don't know who the monitor is. I spoke to NYPD legal attorney who advised that they weren't taking any further action in terms of violating their STIP at this point, which I found kind of surprising. But he did provide me the stipulation that they had agreed to, and he didn't have any further evidence about, further information about the monitor or what was going on there.
Well, the monitor was supposed to provide the police department with monthly reports. Do we know if that even happened?
I don't know, Chairman.
Because that based on the date of the stipulation, that monitor at a minimum should have still been in place in September of 2017. Are any of our cases during that period?
Let's see, the cases we have pending now were from an inspection on April 29th of 2018, and then an EBT case. There were a few charges that were scanned in that involved things that were going on outside, but it wasn't really all tied together because we didn't have the full picture. It was when this sort of hit the fan that the special ops lieutenant took the time to give a full picture to us and give us all of it.
Are we sure we have all the referrals from the police department on this?
Well, actually, there were a few that I was looking at some of the listings in preparation for this presentation, and there were a few things, including the gunpoint robbery that I just mentioned to you, and the loaded gun on November 3rd, I think, that I need to get the reports on, but I have the dates in the reports. So I'll be sure to contact them again to make sure that we have all the evidence we need in terms of the focal point.
And see if you can find out when that monitorship ended and who it was?
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? You ready to vote then? Commissioner Fan?
With a January 31st stabbing, where the perpetrator is apparently underage and got in through a side door, I think that's enough information to suggest that this licensee is have a blatant disregard for the SLA rules and ABC laws with extensive history and multiple gun incidents. I vote to summarily suspend this license because there's imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare.
Commissioner Ford?
But the stabbings, the numerous safety violations, locked exits, expired health permit for the kitchen, smoke detectors hanging from the ceiling that have been disabled, refilling, didn't permit inspection of the safe, fire extinguisher not inspected, exposed wiring, unsecured compressed gas tanks, so forth and so on. And plus the fact that they become a focal point for police attention. So I vote to summarily suspend as well.
I'm gonna vote to summarily suspend. They've been open since 2013. They had a nuisance abatement brought against them, it appears, sometime between 2014 and September of 2016, which they settled with a pretty extensive list of stipulations, one of which, as I mentioned, was a monitor for over a year. And even if that ended in September of 2017, then they completely went off the rails after that and just started again at exactly what they were doing before. And it's obvious that hopefully no one else gets hurt, because people have already been hurt because of their lack of ability to follow the law. So I'm going to summarily suspend.
Okay, the next item we have is 311C, CAB LLC.
Good morning, members. Council's office is seeking an emergency summary order of suspension for the establishment known as Shamrock's Irish Pub. The establishment is engaging in conduct that is adversely affecting the health, safety, and welfare of individuals in the area of the licensed premises. On February 10th, 2019, at approximately 1:05 a.m., the Henrietta Fire District and the Monroe County Sheriff's Department responded to a 911 call. The establishment had exceeded maximum occupancy. Upon arrival, firefighters observed the parking lot to be full of cars, with many cars being double parked and parked in travel lanes. Upon entering the establishment, officers observed an extremely large, hostile crowd and a strong odor of marijuana. Firefighters spoke to the event promoter, who indicated that there were 325 patrons inside, but neither the security at the door or the manager were aware of how many patrons were inside or even what the maximum occupancy was. There was no maximum occupancy posting in the building, which the town confirmed is a violation of the town's fire code. Officers observed security forcefully removing 2 patrons and discharging pepper spray towards those 2 patrons and the exterior door. The pepper spray mist filled the room, causing patrons to run out of the establishment, coughing, crying, and vomiting, and 2 firefighters were also exposed. As patrons began pouring out of the establishment, a large fight broke out directly outside the main doors, and instantly several more fights broke out around the perimeter. Additional fights broke out as groups spilled into the parking lot, causing damage to vehicles. There were not enough officers on scene to break up all of the fights. Once the scene was secure, officers spoke to the manager, who indicated that the event promoter, Chris Williams, hosted an America's Most Wanted party. The manager did not know how to work the camera system or if it even recorded. Officers went to Strong Memorial Hospital and identified 3 individuals who were stabbed during the fights at the establishment. One indicated that he was stabbed outside the bar, but that it might have also happened inside. The second was in too much pain to speak with officers and was taken to the operating room. The third indicated that he was stabbed near the fire truck. At the hospital, officers noticed that the back windshield was smashed out of a vehicle used to take a victim to the hospital. Officers who remained at the establishment discovered a knife in the center of the parking lot, as well as a trail of blood in the breezeway on the side of the establishment. Officers have been called to this establishment between 20 and 30 times since 2017 for fights, large brawls, and highly intoxicated or unruly patrons. Notably, nearly every report mentioned security guards at the establishment, but on its method of operation, the licensee indicated that it would not hire security or an event promoter. The town of Henrietta notified the authority that the licensee violated its special use permit by having a third-party promoted event. In its method of operation, the licensee also indicated that it would have a camera system available to law enforcement, yet many of the police reports reflect that the footage is taped over after 24 hours, often before officers are able to review it. The licensing board relies on the statements made in a liquor license application when determining whether approval of the license is in the public's interest, and it is imperative that applicants do not depart from the assertions made in their application once it's approved. The licensee was actually interviewed by a BCI investigator on February 11th, 2019, and submitted a signed statement indicating that the night of February 9th, Chris and Row Daddy Entertainment sponsored an event for the celebration of Black History Month. He was not present for this event, but the manager, Amber, was. A contract was not signed for this event, and money was not exchanged between the licensee and Chris, but Chris kept the cover charge proceeds, and the licensee kept the proceeds from the sale of food and alcohol. The licensee supplied bartenders, bar back, a cook, but Chris brought 12 security guards. The licensee admitted that he did not check any of the security guards for licenses for this event. He had an arrangement with Chris that security would enforce a dress code, conduct pat-downs, and keep minors out of the establishment. The licensee also told Chris to start limiting patrons in once there are 325 patrons inside, as capacity is about 350.
Can I ask you something about that? Do we know what their capacity officially is? Is it about 350?
The maximum capacity of this establishment is 350.
Okay.
The licensee also indicated that Chris has sponsored dozens of events at the establishment without problems. However, February 10th, 2019 was not the first time an event hosted by Chris at the establishment where police were called to respond. The Monroe Sheriff's Department provided the authority with reports for incidents occurring on June 4th, 2017, August 19th, 2018, and December 2nd, 2018, while Chris and Row Daddy Entertainment were hosting events at the establishment. On June 4th, 2017, police were called there for customer trouble and observed 400 to 500 people at the establishment. On August 19th, 2018, during an event called Ignorantly Lit, a fight broke out and all patrons were instructed to leave. Officers were called to the establishment for a fight involving 400 people, and upon arrival observed numerous fights occurring in the parking lot. Just over 2 months ago, on December 2nd, 2018, police were called to the establishment and observed 250 people and several active fights in front of the establishment and in the parking lot. That night, officers did speak to Chris, who indicated that he is a representative of Row Daddy Entertainment and was hosting a party. Again, this licensee had no approval from either the town or the authority to utilize event promoters, and the authority relied on the licensee's representation that it would not use event promoters when approving this license. This licensee does have an adverse history. On April 6th of 2017, the SLA Enforcement Bureau sent a letter of advice to the licensee after receiving complaints of alcoholic beverages being sold to minors. Additionally, a notice of pleading dated May 4th of 2017 charged the licensee with availing, indicating that the licensee permitted Andrew Schramm, a person not authorized by the authority, to avail itself of the license privilege on or before January 19th of 2017.
He's the son, right, of the two owners?
Correct.
I thought I recognized that name.
Yeah, we just had
Yeah.
them last meeting. Yep.
Yes, yep. A hearing was held, and on November 26th of 2018, the ALJ recommended the charge be sustained, and on February 6th of 2019, the members sustained the charge and imposed a $10,000 civil penalty to be paid by March 22nd of 2019. Notably, Andrew Schramm was licensed under Cresswell Schramm LLC, doing business as Nathaniel's Pub until it was canceled on June 17th, 2014. Between 2009 and 2014, that licensee submitted conditional no contest pleas in response to 6 separate cases involving refilling unlimited drinks and selling alcohol to a total of 6 minors on 4 different occasions. It is respectfully submitted that the above incident demonstrates a complete lack of supervision as well as a total disregard for the ABC law. The licensee was clearly not supervising the premises. As his own statement reflects that on February 9th, 2019, he essentially turned control of his business over to Chris, who kept the proceeds from the cover charge and was responsible for keeping minors, drugs, and weapons out of the establishment, maintaining occupancy, and providing the security staff. The licensee did not check to see if these security guards were licensed. The licensee has also operated outside the confines of its liquor license, as the authority has not approved the licensee's use of an event promoter or security personnel. The licensee's conduct resulted in a significant disorderly incident on February 10th, 2019, which created a dangerous situation for all patrons, firefighters, and police, and led to the stabbing of 3 patrons. In consideration of the nature and number of police responses to the establishment, the licensee's failure to supervise or operate the establishment within the confines of its liquor license, the large violent brawl and resulting stabbings on February 10th, 2019, and the very serious charge of availing sustained on February 6, 2019, this establishment's conduct is negatively affecting the health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the area of the licensed premises, and as such, immediate action in the form of an emergency order of summary suspension is required.
Any questions?
So they've been open about a year and a half, or 2.5, I'm sorry.
The license was issued on May 2nd, 2016.
This was I don't think I have any other questions.
You ready to vote then?
Yep.
All right, Commissioner Fan.
With clear evidence of sales to minor and a proven history of availing, this licensee got a slap on the wrist on February 6. We, at that time, gave them the benefit of the doubt of their son availing the license, but it appears that the licensee is continuing to allow promoters to run a business out of the licensed premise and is not actually present to properly supervise, not the person to properly impose the maximum occupancy numbers. Very disturbing that there are hundreds of people in multiple fights, multiple times, leading to an unruly, hostile environment that ends with stabbing of multiple patrons and a clear drain of police resource. And for that, I will vote to summarily suspend due to imminent threat to health, safety, or welfare of the public.
Commissioner Ford.
The way this place is operating is not just a threat to public safety and welfare. They are a menace. They're operating substantially overcrowding to the point and having violence break out that the police, I think I read here, the police can't even supply enough people, enough policemen to break up all the fights.
Correct.
So, you know, that's absurd, that's ridiculous. So I vote to summarily suspend.
I'm going to vote to summarily suspend as well. It's obvious that this is not a restaurant, and I question whether they ever planned on being a restaurant. The owner, Mr. Schramm, gave a statement to police where he acknowledged that not only was he turning the premises over to an event promoter who brought his own security guards, but that event promoter was only being paid based on the number of people that he allowed into the bar, which obviously gave him an incentive to fill the bar with as many people as he could, which is obviously what he did. They allowed dancing, which their method of operation clearly states that they won't allow. They're not supposed to be using promoters. It was clear that this turned into an absolute mayhem, and luckily nobody got killed. I would think it's clear that this is a threat to the public safety and welfare, and I'm gonna vote to summarily suspend. I would ask that you look into the promoter. I wouldn't be shocked if you find that Mr. Schramm's son is involved with that. And I would find out who the manager is, because there's supposed to be a manager and it's one individual, and I don't see that individual's name in any of the paperwork. Because that may be additional charges. I wouldn't expect that this place is gonna reopen again, so,
Thank you.
I have nothing else on the calendar. Chairman, you have anything?
no, I'm done.
All right, then we are adjourned.
Thank you.